Okay, good morning, everyone. To our teammates, friends, and families that are listening in. My name is Pep Tablada. I represent the Marine Reconnaissance Foundation. I'm honored today to have a couple of great Americans and teammates on the line today to discuss the realities of post-traumatic stress, the leading to destructive behavior, all the way through the spectrum of suicide. As we come towards the holiday season, this is really an acute time period for so many people for many different reasons. And so we thought it was timely to kind of talk about this today with you and amongst ourselves, and then provide some tools for you, our fellow combat veterans, to use, in the day-to-day, as you're seeking more specialized help, and then in the worst case scenario during crisis. So I would like to introduce my three teammates that are on this chat today. Sergeant Major Erick Miyares, a recently retired USASOC Special Mission Unit operator and former United States Marine. My friend William Negley, former CIA case officer and the founder of Sound Off. And my brother and my teammate, Jason Morrison, fellow Force Reconnaissance Marine and author. So we kind of want to talk today amongst ourselves about the problem and then offer some tools that you can utilize today. So first, I want to transition over to Erick. Erick reached out to us as a brother Marine, as a recently retired senior leader. And he and I had some really good discussions about the problem of post-traumatic stress, the impact on the individual, the impact on the family, and then in that worst case scenario, destructive behavior and suicide. I will tell you on behalf of the reconnaissance community and our foundation, we have had, in the last 12 months, we have had 3 suicides of very respected and fairly senior teammates. And we have been fortunate enough to intervene in a handful of serious suicide attempts or ideations. And we've worked very hard and diligently to get our teammates kind of back on a positive track. So those are the Recon community that are out there listening. You know what I'm talking about. We're not going to go into names or specifics, but this is a problem. It's a real problem, and it is more acute amongst the special operations communities, Marine Reconnaissance, Naval Special Warfare, the numerous intelligence agencies, the special mission units, because of the type of lifestyle expectation that is put on each and individual, personnel, man or woman that are assigned to those units. So I want to turn it over to Erick. He has some very recent experience and context, just retiring a little over a year ago. So Erick, over to you, brother.
Hey, I appreciate that. That was a good intro, and I think you laid out the foundation perfectly on how it's affecting all of us, right? Definitely at a personal level. And so I'll start that the key for me was in 2019 as I prepared to retire. So I retired October 2020, but I started about a year and a half early to start kind of opening the emotions and the injuries and just claiming, hey, I'm not going to operate anymore. It's time to retire, right? And that's an entire evolution that I think we need to take a look at, as well as when people decide I'm no longer going to have this purpose, and now it's time to leave the military, and what's next? Because there's a lot of baggage that comes with that gets open at that point. So in 2019, I had a good friend commit suicide, right? And it literally came out of nowhere. Maybe his leadership had the indicators, right? And the indicators were normal for combat veterans at that time. Nonstop deployments. I think he had been in the unit about 10 years at this point, in and out of the door, PTS, TBIs, but then the marriages, the finance, the drinking, right? Where we looked at that and said, check, 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 check. Hey, keep an eye on him. Well, what happened is then in September, I think it was September, he took his life, right? And so that rocked our world. The next day we come to work and suddenly we hear suicide, and it just seemed like it went in one ear and it came out the other, because we didn't have that filter, right? We weren't used to having anyone kill themselves within our unit while on active duty. So just for historical precedent, we just hadn't had it. We have heard of the community having it. But unfortunately, it was, hey, that's on the other side of the beach. That's on the other side. So it didn't necessarily impact us unless there was a teammate that had worked with someone that had committed suicide while on active duty. And then again, anything that would come down from SOCOM or USASOC reference that, right? And then you're just reading it. Unfortunately, you're looking at it and you're just clicking next on your email. And so the unit was taken back a little bit. I was taken back personally because I was part of the individual selection process. So there's a part of a guilt to that, because you're part of that person coming into the unit, helping him train or go through his training selection process, and then be in the office and watching him deploy. Then a month later, we got the second one. And so I think, to your point, the second one was, oh my God, just, this guy just had a young baby, beautiful marriage, young wife. We were grooming him to be a leader. I had taken him downrange a couple of times to mentor him, and he was solid. And in particular, when we mean solid, would be, hey, I want that person to travel with me. And that's probably the highest regards in our community, is when you're asked by name to go somewhere. And so when he took his life, that, for me, and I can just speak personally, it put me in a dark corner. And I'll tell you why. Because I asked myself, well, why did they do it? If we've selected them through our DNA, and I've mentored that person, and I can almost see the world through their eyes, what's stopping me from doing it? What's stopping my other teammates, or the guys that are downrange, or worse, those guys and girls that I know are having marriage issues? They may have been drinking, financial, like, right? Can I stop these people now? What do I do? That was my breaking point. So also, again, as I was getting ready to retire, this happens. I mean, life has a way to present itself. And I think, to me, it's a calling. That's why I'm doing this, and I'm so passionate about it. And then just really quick, and then I'll hand it back. I didn't look back onto this till in 1999, as I was getting ready to come into my unit. We had actually had a former unit member that had committed suicide post leaving the unit, right? And so, again, a typical checklist of marriage, alcohol, PTSD, stress, depression, all of that. And I didn't think about that till essentially 20 years later, when my two friends killed each other, and said, okay, there's a problem here, right? There's a problem with guys in these organizations reaching a point where they've lost purpose, they've lost hope, and they've done these acts. And I guess one more last piece is, when these guys and girls are going to do it, they just do it, right? That we have that mentality, and our shrinks will always tell us, hey, the danger with you guys is that we're not going to necessarily see those tells. You're not going to be at work the next morning, or your wife's going to call, and it's a different problem set for us to figure out. Hopefully that answers a little bit of sort of the experience, and put some stuff on the plate for you.
It absolutely does, Eric. And I'll tell you, the first time that I professionally and personally experienced it within our community, I was shocked. And the reason why I was shocked is because, in my mind, some of the most mentally and physically resilient human beings on the earth are the guys that are my teammates, your teammates, William's teammates, Jason's teammates. And so for me, it was a shock and a disbelief. Like, how is that possible? These guys are harder, better, faster, stronger than the rest. Mm-hmm. And then specifically for you in a special mission unit, right? The elite of the elite, you guys are selected, groomed, trained, and held to the highest of high standards. And to hear that it happens there, right, is kind of a wake-up call, certainly for people that are not in the military, but even amongst us, right? It's like, how is that possible, right? So thank you for that, brother. That's great. We are very fortunate, your leadership reaching out, wanting to get involved. Thank you very much for that. So if I could, I would like to transition now to my teammate, Jason Morrison. So Jason and I go a ways back, a very respected Force Reconnaissance Marine, who is now an author, leaving service, did some contracting overseas like so many do. And like any combat veteran, carries the post-traumatic stress that comes with the realities, of life and death in combat. So before I turn over to Jason, he and I and the foundation, we collectively have been talking about his desire to do a couple things. First and foremost, he has created an online forum which we describe as a safe space for combat veterans, veterans in general, man and woman, to go into. And the webpage is theperfectfuckinglife.com, and the forum inside of that is Bitch and Moan. And it kind of allows a space where, it's raw, because it is brothers and sisters, people that are dealing with the realities of life, transition out of the military, problems in the military, to kind of seek guidance, have open and honest discussions, make connections. And there's a lot of value in that, because a lot of us, when we leave the military, we realize that brother and sisterhood is gone, right? And so what Jason has really worked hard to do is establish a space, a virtual space, where, folks can open up, discuss, seek guidance, and bitch and moan. And then inside of that, Jason is also, as an author, is about to publish a book. And the book is going to kind of, I've read the manuscript. It's fantastic because it's raw, and anyone who has, lived the kind of lifestyle that we have will absolutely connect with it. And it talks about the good, the bad, the ugly, but then most importantly, Jason, as an individual, taking responsibility for himself and his life, and how he's going to conduct himself interacting with his family, his loved ones, his teammates. So I'm a huge personal supporter of it, and the Reconnaissance Foundation is behind the publishing of his book. So Jason, over to you, brother.
Hey, thanks a lot, Pep. And it's an honor and privilege to be sitting in a virtual room with you guys, especially in focusing on this problem, because I think we've just been scrambling over the last few years. If 22 push-ups a day that's the best we can do, I think we need to take a look at how we're supporting each other.
Yep.
Basically, as Pep said, I'm publishing a book right now. It's called The Perfect Fucking Life. It started with me going through my post-traumatic stress, and from combat, as well as when I came back and having a relationship that was toxic for one reason or another. I don't know if it was from my deployments or what, but your combat PTSD is going to affect your life, and it can exacerbate things. The funny thing about PTSD is it carries its own baggage with it, but in addition to that, it will exacerbate everything that you've been sweeping under the rug for the past parts of your life, whether it's childhood trauma. And incidentally, especially in the special operations community, there's a high incidence of childhood trauma for special operators. That's how we can compartmentalize things. So it's more than just combat. It's all of life. And if you are trying to approach PTSD with just focusing on what you've done in the past, you're going to be able to identify and address certain. You're not going to be able to address it holistically. Because it is all of life. So what I was doing is just writing this stuff down. Some of it's poetry, some of it's short stories, just the thoughts that were in. It's not the story of me going through it. It's the story of the emotions and the decisions that I had to make and the conflict in my brain while I was going through this stuff. And I think that's why people can kind of sink their teeth into it. So I just started writing this stuff, and looking back, several years since I began, I realized, I have a book here and I have a book that can be helpful to people. So I compiled that, as well as starting up the website that Pep mentioned called theperfectfuckinglife.com. And within that, the bitch and moan section, the old adage where, if the guys are bitching, they're happy. when they quit bitching, that's when shit starts to get dangerous. And that's what we want to kind of address, but we want to do it. We want to layer it. So, maybe there are precursors to distress. And we kind of want to get in front of that. And that's what Bitch and Moan's about. It's just a safe place to go and discuss, hey man, I don't want to go to AA, but I'm having trouble with the booze. What can I do about it? And a few guys within the forum come up, made themselves vulnerable and said, well, go to the VA, get on these meds, whatever, if you need to. That'll help you cut back on your drinking. This is real stuff, man. This is there's no, if you're going to start hiding the problems that you're having, you're never going to address them. So part of that has developed into a community it's beginning on the Bitch and Moan site. And I think it's going to be ramped up quite a bit here when the book comes out, because a lot more awareness will be going to it. But I just want to point you guys to this place where you can show up and just bitch and moan about things in an environment where people aren't going to poke you in the eye for it, because we all go through this stuff, so I'm really excited to see. I think we're the people on this call here. We're kind of approaching it at different angles and at different layers. And I think this is really important, because we have to have a comprehensive backstop to this kind of stuff. So I think that about covers what kind of the angle I'm approaching it. Pep, I'll kick it back to you. Would like to hear what William's up to as well.
Yeah, brother. Okay, thanks for that, Jason. So before we transition over to William, so William reached out to us a few months ago to talk to us about a program that he has founded and started that is an application-based program that basically gets after a pretty wicked problem. And the problem is, and those of you who have been on active duty and gone through this will immediately connect with this, is the fact that there are folks in the special operations community writ large that while on duty are hesitant, while on active duty, are hesitant to seek formal support through the medical system in fear of retribution. I'm going to lose my clearance. My teammates are going to think less of me. I'm going to be pulled from operational status. Those are realities. I'll tell you myself personally, thinking about the fact that I, as a retired Marine and now as a senior federal employee, and the clearance that I have and the things that I do, even retired. And so William and his team have developed a platform and a program that allows active duty and retired former to reach clinical professionals anonymously as they're transitioning from kind of bitch and moan, and they're moving kind of right on the spectrum, not yet to crisis, but certainly needing specific professional care and assistance. And so what Sound Off does is provides that. It is an awesome program. William and Sound Off have reached out to all of the communities, reconnaissance, naval special warfare, the whole USASOC community, the Air Force, other government agencies, and by teaming with them has created a bank of clinicians that are going to provide that virtual, consistent, persistent, service to the member. So I'll stop there, William. I'm really honored that you're taking the time to come on here with us. And I think a little bit of the background of how you got the Sound Off is an important context. So thank you, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. As I was going to say, as the one not Marine here, I think it's probably valuable to explain how I'm on this call. So I joined the agency in 2009. Marine Mafia is strong inside the agency, so I'll clarify. I wasn't a case officer. I was FTC trained, but spent basically my entire time as a targeting officer doing CT work. And 2009, you know, I'm sitting at headquarters, or I entered 2009, 2011, sitting at headquarters, and we start to hear about this 22 veteran suicide a day problem. That number starts to kind of permeate society. And exactly as you said, Pep, and you know, everybody who's lived this broader national security community knows this. I just saw this fundamental problem in how we provide mental health support to veteran service members and the IC. And that problem, to really boil it down, it doesn't matter how much money anybody is spending if the Marine or the SEAL or the case officer or whoever won't come in, sit down on a couch and talk about what's going on. The money's relevant. And I didn't have any data. I didn't know who Terry Tanelin was. I just knew, because I was living it, a lot of these men and women are not going to come in and expose themselves in that way. Both for, you know, that linear, you know, professional retribution and the sort of murkier stigmatization, cultural, I don't want people to know part of it. So, you know, now it's funny in hindsight, looking back at how intuitive the answer to me was. You know, I'm living in a world of encryption and pseudonyms. And so it just seemed intuitive to me. Well, if the problem is they don't want anybody to know that they're seeking help, why don't we allow them to seek help without anybody knowing? And that seemingly simple idea has simultaneously been the driving thesis of Sound Off now for the better part of a decade, and is complex on every single possible level. So from a technology perspective, from a business model perspective, from a regulatory perspective, it is super complex. But listening to the first part of this conversation, it's frankly really exciting to me hearing you all, you know, really coming from this community speak, because it just reinforces how significant the need for this problem is. Because the notion, Eric, that we had these two people who died and we didn't know anything about it, and that makes the entire point, right? Because they knew about it, they knew they were struggling, but clearly did not feel comfortable coming to their command elements to seek help. So I come back from Afghanistan 2013. I haven't done anything about Sound Off until that point, because I said this is such an obvious problem and answer. Somebody's going to do it, right? Wounded Warrior Project, $400 million, the VA, somebody's going to do this. Nobody does it. I come back from Afghanistan a week later, a week after I've left Gecko. We have our first in-theater, I believe only in-theater suicide week after I left. So I set out to launch Sound Off, to skip over the next 4 years. We had to overcome a pretty significant chicken or egg problem. We had to raise about $1 million before we could help a single person. And you know, that is again, just because the only way I could see to maintain true anonymity and repeat contact is we had to leverage technology. So we had to build a fairly sophisticated piece of technology. So we had a big deal with a very large national veteran organization that fell through in January 2017. So that spring, I'm in Texas and we're saying, okay, we'll raise a little bit of money to try and just do a little super minimum viable product in the state of Texas. Frankly, kind of bummed out. And then June 9th, 2017, my brother-in-law kills himself. Bill Mulder had retired 127 days earlier from Dev Group. He spent the last 15 or so years of his career in NSW at Dev Group. And it was precisely this problem. You know, as a tier 1 unit member, Bill had arguably better access to mental health resources than maybe anybody in the military, but was never going to compromise his career. Whether that's real or not, whether it would have or not is sort of irrelevant. He certainly perceived it would. by saying the wrong things. And everybody that is listening to this knows what that means. He could have sat down with plenty of clinicians, and I know for a fact he did, but he knew what to say and what not to say. So it's this terrible irony that I've now, spent years at that point running around with a PowerPoint deck talking about how the data is about half of those that are really suffering aren't really engaging with help, and they're lying to themselves, or family members are lying, and it's going on in my own family. And so, of course, only after Bill dies do we start to hear, kind of even within our family, see behind the curtain that was being drawn of what was really going on. So, very bluntly, and this is just the way the world works, unfortunately, with my sister coming on board, we're able to raise the seed capital to build the core technology necessary to launch this platform. So I jokingly say that the board fired me in August 2018 to hire me as the first executive director. And this has been my 24/7, 365 ever since. So we went live January 20, basically right at the beginning of 2020. And Sound Off is, I hate saying it's an application because everybody's like, great, another 35-year-old or whatever with an app. But again, it was the only way that we could see to allow true anonymity and repeat contact. So to give 2 seconds on how that happens, somebody downloads our application, iOS or Android, we assign them a username. Inspired by some training I went through at the agency, it's a color, an animal, and a number. So you are Redfish123. We don't have your name. We don't have your email address. We've done our best to not collect any technical identifiers. And not only that, there is no place that you can provide us free text feedback. So we very deliberately structured this system so that you cannot tell us who you are. And then we have, what has now frankly become the good, hard problem to have is filling the clinical and peer resources that you can access. So you can engage with a clinician or a screened and trained peer. So we went live in Texas early 2020. And what we have spent basically the last year and a half going through, and what Pep was referencing, and we're really excited to be partnering with the Marine Recon Foundation on this, is we realized that there was kind of a flaw in our business model. We had built this incredibly powerful technology, but telling the veteran and service member community about it and filling the peer and clinical capacity was extremely expensive. So what we've spent the last year and a half working on, and is being launched literally right now, is we are now partnering with other benevolent organizations, and they carry that outreach effort into their community for us. So Pep is going to go tell the Marine Recon community, hey, if you're struggling and you don't feel safe accessing help through other currently available channels, here's this trusted partner organization. Pep, Marine Recon, and Jason, I'd love to talk to you about your platform on this. Help bring us screened, ideally trained peers from within the Recon community, so that when somebody says they want to talk to a peer, they're talking to one of your own. And then the clinical capacity is a combination of volunteer clinicians, organizations that have clinicians on staff, and then what some of the benevolent organizations are doing is providing financial backstopping to pay a contract pool of clinical support that we just give them as a direct pass-through expense. So the Marine, the Navy SEAL comes on, says I was a Navy SEAL, selects a contract clinician. We pay a medical staffing company that we're working with, Navy SEAL Foundation pays us. And it's just, again, a direct pass-through expense. So that's sort of last decade of my life, medium short, but it is, again, very deliberately built, targeted towards those that do not feel safe accessing help anywhere else. We need everybody's help to do it. We're really excited to be working with Marine Recon Foundation. If there's other foundations watching this, we want to partner with you. If there's Marines watching this, please come on, talk to Pep about becoming a battle buddy. The training is like 3 or 4 hours. It's pretty basic. And we're really excited about this relationship and excited about helping some more Marines.
Thanks, brother. That was a fantastic descriptor of what it is, the hard work you are doing to get this going. I will tell you right now that I will commit to you that I will become a battle buddy. So I want to put that out there because my challenge for all of our teammates, right? We talk about brotherhood, always by your side. Step up, make it happen, right? For any trained mental health clinicians, whether from the reconnaissance community, and there are some that we have already tapped, or just patriotic Americans that are listening to this discussion, we're asking you to step forward. Step forward. There is a body of pro bono work that clinicians are providing, and we want to add to that. Our foundation, in concert with other foundations, will also be providing a budget to add to the pro bono work to ensure that there are clinicians available. So I'm challenging anyone that's listening to this conversation, step forward, be a battle buddy. Someone who's a clinician or you are a clinician, try to bring them into this fold so we can expand this, because the only way that this works is if we all get involved. You can look at it, you can like it on social media, you can thumbs up it, but if you don't get personally involved, we're not moving the ball forward.
And let me expectation management and double down on that exact point, because I can tell you exactly what you're going to get a call about, or I'm going to get a call about. Hey man, I'm in Hawaii. I came on. There's no clinicians here. Yeah, you're right. And that's why we need the help to find those peers, to bring those peers on, to sign up, become a battle buddy, so that when that Marine comes and seeks help, that there's somebody there. And the clinicians, the Marine Recon Foundation's doing it, God's work, providing a little financial backstopping so that we can, work to ensure that there's clinical resources available. But the way that we have clinical and peer capacity available is people sign up. The technology has become the easy part. Now it's making sure that there's somebody there to literally and proverbially answer the phone, answer the call when somebody's seeking help.
Thanks for that clarification, brother. I appreciate that. So if anyone wants to know more about Sound Off, it's an easy search. Numerous high-end news stories about the great work that William and his team are doing, to include a recent CBS News, nightly news article, or just call the foundation. If you want to know more, I'm happy to talk to you about it. Our team, on the board, happy to talk to you about it. But this is yet another tool in addition to Jason and his online forum that we're telling you is available now. So if you need the help and you're not yet in crisis, you can use these tools. Time now, today. Okay. The last thing I would like to talk about is the worst case scenario crisis point, which neither Bitch and Moan nor Sound Off is built to get after, because crisis is acute and acute care is very specialized. So in the immediate, as we're moving into the holidays, I will tell you that anyone listening to this, especially someone from the reconnaissance community, if you're reaching the point of crisis, call me directly, call me personally, call the foundation, and we will find a way to figure out how we can assist. If that includes sending people to your house, if that includes helping you relocate, if that includes lending an ear, if that includes connecting you to these tools that we discussed today, then that's what we're going to do. But if not, it's important that everyone listening to this that may be in crisis, is considering suicide. The suicide crisis hotline exists. It's a real thing. I know many people that have used it, and it has helped them because it provides a trained and certified clinician with acute care training to respond. So I'm going to read that number out to you now. It's 1-800-273-8255 and extension 1 right when it dials in. You can also text 838-255 and that'll connect you via text directly. And there's also a online chat function. So there's numerous ways if you need help and are in crisis, time now that you can seek that help and stop for a moment, stop the forward progression to crisis, take a moment to off gas, try to back yourself off, and then let's work on how we as a community can help our fellow combat veterans, our fellow reconnaissance Marines, or any other community for that matter, because we have to stop this, and it takes all of us getting involved and helping each other with compassion and patience to do it. Okay, so I'll stop there kind of around the room for anybody before we close this out, guys. I really, really appreciate your time. I have the utmost respect for all of you, being decent human beings, patriotic Americans that want to do something to help. So I can't tell you how much I'm honored to be here with you today.
I'll take the opportunity, Pep. And so, thanks guys for what you said. And I took some notes, and there's so much to talk about. But I will start at a personal level. I did take a knee. I went into a dark corner, and I broke that emergency help glass, and I asked for help. And in our community, we don't see it a lot, right? Asking for help. It's not something you hear about, but I had to do it. And I had to do it because I have a wonderful wife, a son, a mom that has been encouraging me since I was a little kid, running around in the streets of Hialeah, being mischievous, and other family members that I kept them away from me, from Erick, for about 20 years, the 20 years that I worked in Special Mission Unit, and I did it for a reason, but it's not the right answer, right? And so when I lost those two friends, again, you go into that very dark place and you ask for help. And some of the things that really helped was talking about it, and in particular, talking about it with people that weren't in my unit. And the reason why is 5, 10, 15, 20 years in a community, we build certain biases, right? There's group bias, there's all these cognitive biases. And I had lost my temper because my two friends had committed suicide. So I had no trust in my clinicians. I had no trust in my screening process. I had no trust in, earn every day that you're at the unit because the next day you can be asked to leave. I lost all of that trust. But I knew inside that I had to pass a storm because I had guys in the hallway, just like I remember before the second guy took his life. I remember walking and seeing him, smiled, I did my buddy check, then I kept on going. And that's an image that I cannot erase, but it is a new image that I didn't want to reflect on if a third person or a fourth person would have taken their life, because there's a syndrome, right? And I don't know what it is medically, but one took his life and the other one took it because of the first one. And we were literally waiting for someone else or a former unit member who's been out and disconnected from our tribe, who is probably the most vulnerable, who is going to go, if these young guys with all of this training and all of this help to committed suicide, and again, now they're out of the organization, we were concerned about that. So I had a lot of responsibilities for my family, for myself, for unit members, for former unit members. And so I asked for help. And the hardest thing was picking up that phone. But here's what I said to myself. I said, I don't give a flying fuck anymore. I don't care about my clearance, right? I don't care about operating anymore. I don't care about what I thought would be the next life, which would tie to what I just did in 30 years. I said, it's not worth it. It just wasn't worth it anymore. And once I realized, essentially, I'm going to cut away. Once you go through that procedure, you already know what your mind is going to go through, and you know what's going to happen physically, right? And so I asked for help, and I went through this program, and I had a clinician, and I spoke to them almost every week for about 6 months. And it was such a fresh air because I got to start all over and tell my story as a kid in my childhood, right? And I'm like, oh crap, another person asking me about my childhood. Well, it all factored in, right? Just like William said, why we get selected, why we're in these communities, and why there were still things of, hey, my family didn't believe, or families don't believe you should or should not commit suicide. Well, we're beyond that, right? I was then beyond the, I don't care about my clearance anymore. I'm going to talk to someone because I have a family that needs me, because for 20 years, I never brought anything home, and Bill, to your point, everything was compartmentalized. And that compartment was then further compartmentalized in our team rooms and within the circle of trust of the people that we trust. And so I asked for help, and it was such a powerful process to speak to someone and listen to yourself talk. And then someone that doesn't really know you have a different perspective on what you're saying. Because my friends, my team leaders are psychs. I mean, some of my physicians in the unit, I've known them for 15 years. Well, that person would always rub me and go, you're okay, buddy. You're okay. This is why you were trained. This is why you were. I didn't want to hear that anymore. I want someone to deal with the human being. And so if there's one major thing is talk to someone, pick up these phone numbers, go through the process, because you will heal. You will start. It's like going for that long run, and you finish that 5-mile run and you're like, oh, wow, what the hell was I thinking about three hours ago about doing something stupid, and now my mind is clearer 3 hours later. So please take the opportunity and talk to someone. I will tell you, because we like statistics. I still hold the TSSCI. I have a Maryland, concealed carry permit. I just became an FFL, and I have a VA claim. I have PTS. I have TBI. But I feel stronger today than I literally felt 2 years ago, musculoskeletally, mentally, emotionally, and even with faith. So I'll stop there, and hopefully that sets an example. You can do it. And then, I don't have a platform or a tool. I am just showing you my vulnerabilities as a strength. That's what I'm going to do. I don't care about stigmas. I don't believe in that anymore. I believe in just helping people. So I've had people, if you need to DM me, you need to call, you need to look at the videos on my photos or the platforms. I share information. Please do not lose hope. Pat, I tie that back to you.
Thanks, brother. Awesome, man. Spot on. Okay, Jason or William, you guys have anything you guys want to pass before we close this out?
I'll just pile on a little bit what Eric was saying. I've called the hotline, and I would encourage you to don't wait until you have a gun in your hand. As soon as it becomes an option, a viable option for you, stop, cease and desist, objectify yourself like you do in a gunfight, step out of what's going on emotionally, and address the problem, right? Okay, I'm going to pick up this phone right now and I'm going to make this phone call. Save my life. Because as soon as it becomes an option, it's something you start toying around with. Don't get to that point. And what happened was the cops showed up and they were all tactical, and it snapped me back into reality because I could identify with what they were doing. It just broke the cycle that I was going through. So there's no shame in that, man. That's a brave thing to do. Save your own life, So I highly encourage you to, like Eric said, just tremendous strength and vulnerability. So be vulnerable to your buddies too, man. I'm actually part of this group text. It's a royal pain in the ass because I have a bunch of like 20 of my war buddies, and you can't get off of a group text. You're stuck for life. It's like hell. But it's great because I just jump in whenever I feel like it. But there's always communication going on. And like I said before, if no one's bitching, then maybe we should check up on this guy, see how he's doing. That just happens in community. And so, I mean, that's a great, if you want to do something internal with your crew, you know, your battle buddies, do that. You can't ignore it. And it's worth biting the bullet and dealing with the pain in the ass because of it's just such a great way to force people into community. So just think of things like that. Use these platforms by all means. Get in touch with Pep if you need anything, you Marines out there. And I'm really excited to see how we're kind of layering these capabilities in to help support not just surviving but thriving. That's what we want to aim at. We're not just here to keep our head above the water. We want to kick some ass. So thank you again, you guys. Privilege being here. And William or Pep, if you have anything to say, William, go for it.
No, just appreciate the opportunity. Really excited about this partnership, and I'll say I've spoken to, at this point, probably every special operations focused foundation there is, and there's ones that are easier to work with than others. I'll leave it at that. And Pep and the Marine Recon Foundation, you know, he'd never heard of me, never spoken to me. Saturday morning, I'm sure 6 a.m. his time, we spoke, and 55 minutes later he was saying we're in. So I'm really excited about this. Obviously, you know, a community near and dear to my heart. My closest mentor at the agency was a old school Marine Recon guy. So I'm excited about this, and let me triple down on, if you're a peer who's interested, if you're a Marine who's interested in helping out some of your fellow Marines, reach out to Pep. Let's get you trained up. Let's get you on the platform. And certainly if you're a clinician, the same. So excited about this moving forward, and hopefully you'll be hearing more from us.
Awesome, guys. This has been an inspiring conversation. You know, let's keep this dialogue going, right? You know, this is not a one-off. This is really the beginning of a combination layered approach to how we collectively are trying to get after this. So I appreciate you all. You know, we'll be talking soon. Please, again, if anyone has any questions about any of this, you can reach out to any of us, certainly to me. And I look forward to hearing from you all. And if nothing else, Merry Christmas to you guys. Appreciate you all.
Merry Christmas. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.